And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Define Disaster. This is Battlefield 4, and today we have a weapon showdown between the M416 and the ACE 23 in an aim to find out which of the two weapons is the all-rounder king. The M416 versus the ACE 23 is a classic Battlefield 4 debate, and it's always difficult to really decide which of the two guns is the best for every combat situation possible. So what do we mean by an all-rounder gun? Well, an all-rounder is a gun that performs well in all situations. It usually isn't the best at any one given situation, but performs well in all and allows a player a certain degree of flexibility when playing. To put this into a concrete example, a SAR-21 is a distance assault rifle. It performs very poorly at close quarter and is thus not an all-rounder, while say an MP7 or a FAMAS assault rifle are excellent at close quarter, however horrible at distance, and are once more therefore not versatile enough for an all-rounder status. Starting off then with the ACE 23, we've got a standard assault rifle damage model here as with the M416 of 24.5 to 18, with the damage drop-off starting at 12.5 meters and ending at 60 meters. Now, the rate of fire of the ACE 23 is slightly higher than the M416 at 770 rounds per minute, and the magazine size slightly bigger than the M416 with 35+1, or making a grand total of 36. Where things start getting really interesting with this gun is when we start looking at reload times. We have a reload time with one or more bullets left, also known as a short reload, of 2.3 seconds. Nothing too long, nothing too short, pretty average, but definitely not fantastic for close quarter, and no match for the M416, as we'll see in just a minute. The long reload of the ACE 23, however, is where it gets really bad. At 3.4 seconds, we are talking about a really long reload. Even though we have 5 extra bullets in the chamber, this doesn't quite make up for this weakness, if you will. Looking then at recoil, we have 0.36 degrees vertical, pretty high, not as bad as say an AEK or FAMAS, but of course this weapon doesn't have the same fire rate, so it's high but not uncontrollable, which is what we would expect from an all-rounder weapon. We have a low recoil for the left hand side at 0.17 and a relatively high of 0.27 degrees to the right, meaning that this weapon will pull to the right, and depending on your recoil control, you will actually more easily be able to compensate for that horizontal recoil. Looking then at the first shot recoil multiplier, this is high-ish, I guess you could say, at 2.25. It's slightly higher than the M416, but it's nothing uncontrollable, and if you're having troubles with it, slapping on a angled foregrip will result in the removal of any kind of difficulties. Looking then at the accuracy of the weapon, we have a standard 0.2 accuracy modifier for the ACE 23 when standing and not moving, of course looking down sight, and when moving and hip firing, we have an accuracy of 3.5. This, both the ADS while not moving and while hip firing, are identical to the M416. Looking next then at the M416, same damage model as the ACE 23, a slightly lower fire rate at 750 rounds per minute versus the 770 of the ACE 23, a slightly smaller magazine at 30+1 or 31 versus the 36 of the ACE 23, and a slightly slower muzzle velocity at 600 versus the 620 of the ACE 23. Nothing significant there yet, maybe with the exception of the magazine size. Where things do start to get interesting though is when we start looking at reload times. The reload time with at least one bullet left, also known as the short reload on the M416, is 1.85 seconds. That's blazing fast, and of course blows the competition, in this case the ACE 23, at 2.3 seconds, completely out of the water. Its reload time on the long reload is also very competitive with 2.4 seconds versus the ACE's 3.4. This gun, from a reload perspective, certainly is ideal for close quarter. Looking next then at the recoil Patterns. We have 0.32 vertical recoil, 0.12 to the left, and 0.28 to the right. What this means is that the recoil pattern is very similar to the ACE 23 with a slightly lower recoil both vertically and to the left, and a slightly higher recoil to the right. Once more, we have therefore a gun that pulls to the right, but with the right amount of recoil control, this should be easy enough to master. The first shot recoil of the M416 at 2.2 is 0.05 lower than the ACE 23, which is going to make absolutely no difference when actually using the gun. This gun is similarly, actually identically accurate to the ACE 23 with the same 0.2 ADS while not moving and the same 3.5 accuracy modifier while hip firing and while moving. Now, is this going to blow out a PDW? Of course not. As mentioned earlier, this is not fantastic, but for assault rifles, it's pretty standard. So let's get on then to actually comparing these weapons. Making a decision between the ACE 23 and the M416 is extremely difficult. They're both superb guns, and I have played both of these weapons excessively, well beyond the point of mastery, I can assure you of that. But my personal preference is the M416, and that is rooted in its reload time. At 1.85 seconds, there is nothing that beats out a quick reload in close quarter and engaging your enemy before they've actually reloaded their gun. And that's just a huge benefit that I know to use on a regular basis. The ACE 23 does offer me a slightly higher fire rate and does offer me a few more bullets in the chamber, and I know to use that when necessary. However, I do prefer the M416. I also feel somehow that the ACE 23 is just slightly more unruly. If you look at the recoil stats, there isn't a big difference, to be honest, and you wouldn't think that you can actually realize that in playing, but personally I find that for some reason when I play the M416 I have less problems with recoil, or I'm better at controlling it versus when using the ACE 23. Funnily enough, I have more kills with the ACE 23, roughly actually double the amount of kills that I have with the M416, and this comes down to the spring patch and the weapon balance. I used to play the ACE 23 a lot more before it was nerfed slightly back in the beginning of 2015. So guns change over time, and at least in Battlefield that's the way it works because they constantly rebalance everything. So definitely both of these guns are a great choice. My personal preference is the M416, but that doesn't have to mean that it's gonna fit everybody. So which gun do you prefer? Is it the M416 as well, or are you an ACE 23 person? Feel free to let me know down below in the comments, or if I've missed out on one of the key strengths of either of these guns, feel free to put that down below as well. As per usual, I'm open for suggestions and comments. That's what the comment section is there for. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a sub so you don't miss any more Battlefield 4 content. But otherwise, I hope to see you in the next Battlefield 4 video.